All right. Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of the Wired Nerdy podcast. I am here with one of my best friends, Dougie Doug. How you doing, my
Hey,
friend?
how's it going tonight?
Good. You have a good week?
I did, yeah.
Good, good. Well, we've got some interesting topics tonight, but we're going to do a segment that Doug came up with that will be a reoccurring thing, where each week that we're going to go over topics that we each find that have been in the news that are specific to, I don't know, being geeky, geek culture, being nerdy. So, Doug, I'm going to let you go first. What do you have on your list tonight? Surprise me.
Yeah, so I thought about this little segment and talk about some cool stuff in the news. One of the things I saw and it's being shown over and over is History of the World Part 2.
I don't know much about
Uh,
this. Tell me about it.
yeah, so I saw that they're coming out with a series on Hulu. I think it's 4 or 5 parts. History of the World Part 1 was back in the 80s.
Hmm.
So
Well,
Mel
I,
Brooks. Yep.
oh, it's a comedy?
Yeah. So have you watched the first one?
No, well, I know of it. Like, I know he did a series of like The Life of Brian. He did the History of the World, and I've seen like
Blazing
one of my
Saddles,
favorite
all
scenes
kinds of stuff.
is
Yeah.
that the one where he's Moses and he comes out and he goes, "I present to you these 15,"
Yep.
and he drops and goes,
Yeah.
10 commandments. Is that what that
It's
is?
great. And then the Spanish Inquisition and then the
Yes.
Romans. And I think
Oh.
Richard Pryor rolls up a joint
Mhm.
and smokes out the Romans chasing him. And
So is this a remake or what is this?
I believe this is a sequel. So
Oh.
I'm looking on the site here now.
Covers different
Tra-
decades. Like he was
hmm
at the beginning of time, right? And the old ones, is it different
Yeah, he
decades?
kind of worked his way from like creation of life all the way up to there.
Okay.
Um, really big actors in here. I mean,
Really?
Johnny Knoxville and
Oh,
Seth Rogen, really big names in there. So I'm hoping it's going to be good because
awesome. Do
you
they have a
worry
target?
about sequels. You worry about sequels and trilogies and stuff. Like
Yeah.
first one's always good, and then you're like, "Ooh, are they going to do good with the next one?"
Do they have a target release date?
Yeah, let me look. I'm sure it said it on the trailer that I watched.
I'm
Yeah,
very
so Monday, March 6th, and it's going to be on
March
Hulu, I
6th.
believe.
That's soon. March 6th.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. We're recording this in February, obviously, so that's coming down the way. Do you think there'll be issues with the audience being different than it was in the 80s, meaning comedies change? Some people are more sensitive to things. I mean, you can't make Blazing Saddles, for example, today.
Absolutely. And that was the example I'm going to use. So the comedy in Blazing Saddles is for a totally different generation.
Oh, yeah.
And not to
Right or
say that
wrong. I mean, yeah,
we're
it's
sheltered or anything here, but it's
just
a
different.
different kind of PC world. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be sensitive to other people
Yeah.
in a way that maybe you didn't before. And that's not
Yeah.
a bad
So
thing,
I
right?
believe with the cast that they have listed, they are
Mhm.
definitely going to change it to now times,
Gotcha. Do a
to
different spin on it.
current comedy and current situations. Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's awesome, man. I didn't know about that. See, I love this segment because I hadn't even heard of that.
Yeah.
And there's so much news, you can't even keep up with it all. So that's
Oh
great.
no. So I tried to pick some of the stuff that really caught my eye, and they've been showing this commercial over and over and over.
Cool. I will check it out, man. I'll put it on my list. So is it my turn now? Let's see.
Absolutely. What you got for me?
So I'm not going to talk about all it because there's a lot to it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I hadn't seen it all, but Nintendo had another one of their directs. Now, Nintendo started doing this in the pandemic. And they've stepped back from E3 and a lot of the conferences, but they're doing these Nintendo Directs, these small videos where they present games that are in development are going to be coming out for the Switch.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So there was a lot of announcements. I mean, everything from Metroid coming to it
Oh yeah.
to new Metroid, there obviously a new Zelda coming down the
So is
way,
that a
which is
remaster or is it a new story?
I believe it's a remastered, but I haven't seen it. My brother had texted me about it. He's seen more than I had. I hadn't
Awesome.
checked it out. It's been nuts a week so far.
Yeah.
But what I am excited about, why I put it on my list was one of my all-time favorite games on the Game Boy Advance and on the DS was Advanced Wars. I'm a sucker for turn-based strategy, or especially
Yes.
turn-based combat. And with this, if you don't know much about it, it's very cartoon. It almost looks anime style in the graphics. But what's really cool, you build units and tanks, and then essentially you do turn-based battles. And it's really good. And it's in the vein of on PC and a bunch of other platforms. There's another game called Into the Breach. That's very similar to that. So if you like turn-based strategy, these are ones that I would recommend. But they when the whole thing broke out a year ago, unfortunately, overseas with war, they, out of sensitivity, Nintendo put a pause on Advanced Wars release date. Well, they finally announced it'll be out in April.
Oh,
So
good.
that's what I'm excited about because I love that game. It's kind of nostalgia for me. So that's why it was on my list. We could probably have a whole conversation about Nintendo
Right.
Direct. I didn't do my homework and I didn't watch all of it, but that's the one I'm really excited about. So your turn, go.
Yeah. Back to Advance Wars real quick. That was for
Oh
what,
yeah,
the Game Boy Advance?
it was on the Advance and the DS. I
DS.
think
Okay.
I
I think
remember
I
the
played it on the Advance. Yeah.
Yeah, and the DS version I liked a little better because they did the thing where the map was on the bottom and
The
your,
double
the
screen thing.
actual and
Yeah.
the actual battle was on the top, if I remember correctly.
That thing
So,
was crazy because it had a bunch of games that utilized the two screen system.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, it's really neat.
So my next thing, and I kind of have to relay back to you, is this Hogwarts Legacy game. It looks amazing. The
Hmm.
reviews I've been seeing on Steam and on the internet are just going crazy for it. So have you bought that? Have you downloaded that?
I actually did. So,
Oh man.
disclaimer, I'm to the dismay of my older son and daughter who are huge Harry Potter fans.
Yep.
I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. Now, I've read, I think, books 1 through 3 up to Prisoner
Hmm.
of Azkaban. So I did read the books. I've obviously seen all the movies,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say that I'm the biggest Harry Potter fan. Film wise, I honestly like the Fantastic Beast series better than anything.
Yeah.
Um, but in a way, maybe that makes me more objectional. Once I saw the reviews, I was like, you know what, it's getting really positive reviews. I'm just going to get it. So I got it for PlayStation 5 on launch night, pre-ordered it, and then I could download it early. And over the last 2 days, I've been putting time into it. It's open world. Oh, it is really good. Even not being a Harry Potter fan, it is really good. My son, I was talking to him about it. He's a huge Harry Potter fan. A couple of his friends are not Harry Potter fans, but they downloaded it and they're loving it too.
Yeah.
So it tells you how
The
good the
open
game
world
is.
concept, I think I would like to get it because
Oh, you should pick it up.
you're building your character up, you're learning new
Yep,
spells.
RPG. Yep,
Awesome. Yeah.
they do really cool things in it. What I like about the PlayStation version is if you've ever messed with the PlayStation 5, it has the haptic controller. So what that means is it has force feedback. So I remember the first time I experienced it was like on Hitman game. If you're shooting a sniper rifle, for example, when you pull the trigger, it kind of fights you. There's a resistance.
Mm.
Well, it's the same thing on the Harry Potter game. When you're casting spells, there's a resistance to the triggers
Oh,
and
that's
stuff.
pretty cool. Yeah.
It's really cool. So that's an added benefit, but they have it on other platforms as well. The game is gorgeous. I was shocked to find out that it was developed in Unreal Engine 4, not even the newest one, which is 5,
Mm.
which is just mind blowing. So it's like they're
They
pushing
might be able
Unreal Engine
to
4
bump it up with the next one. Say this is successful, they'll
like
have
remastered.
a
They
sequel to
could.
it. Yeah.
Well, what's neat is they totally built all of Hogwarts, like all of it, and it's free roaming. You go anywhere you want. You're right. You learn spells. Just the story is engaging. The character models and the faces, they look really well acted. The voice acting's great. Just a lot of lore. Great game. So I have only sunk, man, maybe 4 hours into it, not much, and I haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, you're looking at well over 20 to 50 hours if you do the side questing.
Oh, at least. Yeah.
So my son told me that the side quests actually, there's more hours in side quests than there are in actual main quests in the game. But it's awesome. Love it.
Yep.
That's my little pitch right now, only after playing a little bit. So pick it up. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and those kind of games I like because they can add expansions, add more
Mhm.
side quests, add more stuff like that. And then the
Exactly.
open world that you're not just stuck in a, well, I got to do this next.
Yeah.
It's go
Or
out,
on
do whatever
rails.
you want.
Yeah, where it's kind
And
of guiding you where to go.
the playability of that and the fan base from Harry Potter, from the books and the movies,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be very popular.
Oh,
And
yeah, it's
open
good.
world, you might just explore. Just you don't play the game, you don't play the missions, you just explore the
Yep.
world of Harry Potter and all that.
Yeah, kind of like Skyrim,
Yeah,
right? We talked about that last week. So
absolutely. Yeah.
awesome, man. Yeah, pick it up. I love it. That's a good one. Let's see. Next one on my list. There's a lot of chatter around this. Have you heard of Chat GPT?
I have, and I was actually gonna put that on my list, but I thought you might have some good information for me
Yeah. So
because Google
yeah.
looks like they might have got defeated, but I'll let you tell me the story.
Well, they haven't yet. So
Okay.
we're actually on. Doug and I have a list of what we're going to cover for show topics, and one of them is about artificial intelligence, and this will feed
Hmm.
into that nicely. So here's the layman's terms if you're unaware. So ChatGPT has been around for a while. There's different versions. Essentially, it's an AI that has been trained on a language modeling platform and algorithm. There was originally Chat GPT 3.0. There's 4.0 is we're right at that point right now. Eventually, we're already going to release at some point soon a 5.0. And with each generational jump, there have been a lot of really good progress, right? Well, it's been trained on all of Wikipedia. We're talking hundreds of thousands of words, and it can simulate the closest that we've ever gotten to actual human interaction when you type things. But also, you can give it prompts. You can say, write a story about a car falling off a cliff, all this kind of, and it'll spit it out, and it looks like a human wrote it. So that's what ChatGPT is.
And
it
it's
was
really
developed.
interesting. I've read some of those stories, and some of them are pretty interesting because people are saying, well, what if this happens, enter this character?
Yep.
And the other issue they got to worry about is that students I've seen are using this to write their papers in college. Yeah.
Yep. Plagiarism. And they're now,
big time.
It's opening up a whole new market, because I even read that universities are investing in other AI that can detect when an AI wrote a paper. So think about that for a moment. That's just kind of crazy.
Kind of one bot fighting another bot to stop the plagiarism. Yeah.
It's just going to be like Robot Wars. So it's huge. Well, there's a company called OpenAI, who developed it. Microsoft has sunk a butt ton of money into it, which a lot of people in the tech industry were upset because Microsoft announced layoffs, all while they were also then a week later announcing a massive investment into OpenAI. And they're essentially taking ChatGPT and they're integrating it with Bing, their search engine. And they released the beta this week, and it's pretty fascinating. So instead of just doing a straight up search where I'm, show me, the Hawaiian Islands, that's what Google does, has a great algorithm for it. It's been around forever. They've always been ahead of Microsoft. Well, now they've integrated, so you can do way more. You can do the thing where you can say, and you can go out, I played with it. It said, hey, how do I get in shape? This is my age, blah, blah. And it writes this really expansive workout plan for you. And it's well written, as a great example. So that's in beta right now. It will go public. A lot of people are saying it's going to really surpass Google in way of searching, make being more popular. Now, Google does have their own AI they've been working on in-house. There's rumors about whether it's ready, but here's the point. This is going to lead up to what a lot of people are calling an AI war, meaning that as big tech companies start to invest in it heavily, now that we're making progress, it's going to really accelerate from here, because it's going to start investing money. Because it's usually been mainly in academia up to this point. And now it's starting to hit the mainstream and start using practical applications. So there's going to be an AI war. And this is where in the next, I'm going to dare say it, 5 to 10 years, you're going to see an exponential jump in artificial intelligence.
And it might go to applications such as like stock markets and medicines and stuff like that. So
yep, exactly. There's a great podcast I recommend if you're interested in this. Is kind of heady. Lex Friedman is his name. He always has intellectual people on. He recently did a podcast. I should have wrote the person's name down, but you can search through the show notes where he is an expert in artificial intelligence. Lex Friedman himself works on artificial intelligence, and they explain how they beat chess, Go, a game called Diplomacy, and they explain how ChatGPT was used in dominating these traditional games that AI haven't been able to beat humans at. And now they're doing great. They did it with poker. So it's a great listen if you're wanting to understand more about where AI is now. Where you'll get excited is at the end of the episode. They talked about the possibilities of applications and for gaming. Like instead of having an NPC, a non-player character that's just scripted, like Skyrim, that just walks around and does like this preset events, they can inject ChatGPT to where it can actually have a conversation with you, like that's meaningful in depth and remember decisions. So, yeah. I figured you'd like that.
A game changer, big time.
It would be. They wouldn't be dumb NPCs anymore.
Right.
So the Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy would probably be more realistic than what we thought. I don't know if you ever saw Free Guy, but
I was a fan of it. I liked it. I liked seeing the behind the scenes of the NPCs, and
I loved it. I thought it was good.
Fight the humans. Yeah. But then
so
you got to worry, kind of Terminator like, the robots come alive. So
he was
that's
good.
Another show.
Yeah. So that topic was kind of heady, but we had to kind of explain what it is so people understand. If you're not into it, and we want want to be open to that. So, what do you got, man? What's your next one?
But next one is Renfield.
Oh my god.
I back to kind of a movie, back to a show, but Nicolas Cage, I've just been a fan of him. He's so interesting. That's probably the nice way to say it. But him as a vampire just looks really cool.
Oh man, I saw the trailer. I'm so down. My wife and I want to go see it. I'm all
Yeah.
for it. We got kind of wore out with vampires, with the Twilight era and all that. But
Yeah.
this
Sparkly
is
vampires. Yeah.
exactly glittery. But this is different, and I'm all for different. So I appreciate what they're trying to do with it. Now I don't know, but somebody will probably flame me in it. But I don't. I thought Renfield. I don't know if that was a comic book first or not. I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure, but it does look really good. That was a good one to put on the list. I'm excited for it. Do you know when that comes out?
Yeah.
I thought it was
It is a
recent.
comic book. I was doing a little research
Oh,
for you
sweet.
there.
Thank you.
So they've got Renfield, Tale of Madness came out in '95, and then it went up to 20.
95.
Yeah. If
Whoa.
I'm reading the saga of a mad prophet consumed by evil, and then I'll let everybody else read the description.
Wow. 95.
So
You're blowing my
yeah, let me
mind.
see when the movie comes out.
Yeah. I, being a comic book reader in the 90s, especially, I didn't know about it. And that's just it. When there's so much stuff that's out, sometimes you miss it. So,
Yeah.
wow.
It releases in April.
April. Soon, man. We've got so many good movies coming
Yeah.
out. We're going to do an episode on that as well. I'll look ahead at movies because there's some really good ones. So, wow.
Yep.
Good one, man. I'm excited
Hey,
to see it.
thanks. Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about it on here.
All right. What do you got for me?
All right. I've got,
I think
let's
I'm
see
out,
here.
so I'll
You're
let
out.
you
I
close
went
us up
crazy.
and,
We'll close it up. I got 3 more. We'll be quick, okay? Because they're
sounds
not
good.
expansive. The Sims 4 made an announcement. My kids like the Sim 4s quite a bit, but they're releasing an update in March to make the babies more realistic. I guess up to this point in the Sims, when you have a baby, you put them in a crib and they just kind of static.
They
And
kind of take care of
yeah,
themselves, or yeah.
now they're putting the needs in it. They poop, they pee, whole 9
Oh,
yards, throw temper tantrums when they're toddlers, and it's more work.
yeah.
So a lot of Sims players are kind of excited about that. Some are kind of apprehensive. I've read both sides of it. Some people are for it, some people are against it. So that's kind of interesting.
Now I wonder if that's an option like aging. I know you can change your
You can.
aging on Sims. Maybe you can
Yep.
change parental care or
It
something.
might.
I
It
don't know.
might. There's
Yeah.
a massive Sims community. Like it is
Yeah.
played by so many people. Like it's
Hmm.
a big game. And they're working on a new Sims 5 actually, but they haven't
Oh,
announced when
awesome.
it's going to be
Yeah.
out yet. So, but yeah, I thought that was a good one. Let's see. Next one, Amazon, which Amazon's been on a tear about making video game adaptations, and obviously with Last of Us is picked up by HBO.
Hmm.
I think Amazon's doing God of War, but they made an announcement that they're doing Spider-Man Noir, which I don't know much about outside of watching
Oh,
Into the Spider-Verse. But Noir being the one with the trench coat and black and white and the hat and detective. I don't know why that one. Like of all the Spider-Mans, why wouldn't you like Batman Beyond,
yeah. I
the
wonder if that's
futuristic
a
one?
licensing issue.
I don't
Maybe
know. Marvel
that
owns all of it now, so
version of Spider-Man. I don't know.
maybe. Oh, or they just got a
Yeah.
good script, and that was the one they ran with. So,
Hmm. Okay.
and the last one's very, very brief. It just surprised me. I don't know much about it. There's an animated series on Disney. It's really good. I have not watched it. It's on my long backlog list. But The Bad Batch, which is tied into if you watch the Clone Wars, it's the CG animated Star Wars ones, which I watched some of them in the past, and they're really good. They have a Wookiee Jedi now.
Yes, I saw
Do you
that.
watch it?
I have not, but the Wookiee Jedi, my cousin, who we hope to have on the season later, but he said the Wookiee is coming on there, and it's pretty
So he
good.
watches it.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
he's watched the Clone Wars and then the other animated series. I can't think of the name right now, but he's caught up with all that
Yeah. There's quite a few of them. There's a
canon.
lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, are they going to have the Wookiee talk or moan? I mean, it'd be weird if it just spoke
yeah.
English. I don't know.
I don't
It'll be
know
weird.
either. Yeah.
I did see like brief footage of like the Bad Batch, who are essentially the stormtroopers bringing it to another Wookiee elder. I saw like the footage of that, and it was interesting. I was like, what? There's a Wookiee Jedi? That's interesting.
Right.
Although there's theories that Jar Jar Binks was an actual Sith. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. God, that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole nother episode.
We'll
There's
pause
a
on
lot
that
of
one.
people that don't like Jar Jar, and there's maybe a couple that like Jar Jar.
I know the director of Thor: God and Thunder, Ragnarok, all of that. Taki
Taiki
Taiki Waki.
Wakiki.
I could
I'm
never.
gonna say his name wrong.
You were closer than me, but there I read an article that he's pitched to Disney to do a Jar Jar Binks movie. I mean, come on, that would be hilarious.
Taki Watiti.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong.
I love him to death. He's great,
He's great.
but Jar
Yeah.
Jar Binks movie, come on. All right, so that's our topics for the week. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
I'm
good,
gonna have some more articles next week. I promise.
dude. It was awesome suggestion that you made. I'm glad you did because there's always something new going on, and things slip through the crack, and you miss them. Like, shoot, I didn't even know about the Hulu show that you brought up.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what's our next segment? Take it away, Doug. You know what we're talking about next?
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
get into
age old conversation.
yeah,
Say
Apple
it.
versus Android, right?
Here we go. I can't believe you put
All
this on the
right.
list. I can't believe you.
Well,
You,
I'll start off with that. I had an iPhone,
you
so I
had an
started
iPhone?
on iPhone. Yeah, I started
Why don't we
with the.
start with where are we at today? You are a what?
I am a diehard Android fan.
That's right. And I am a diehard Apple fan. Now,
Yeah,
we'll talk about that here in a moment. And you and I rib each other quite a bit since we've known each other. I never
absolutely. Yeah,
knew you had an iPhone at one point. What happened?
yeah. So I had
How'd you go
the.
wrong?
I know, right?
No, I'm just messing with you. Seriously. Go
So
ahead.
I think I started with iPhone 3, iPhone 4, and then I believe my first Android experience was with the maybe like the Blackjack 2. I know it had a full keyboard, external keyboard. And I don't know why I switched, but I've just been stuck ever since. I've gone back to Apple a couple times, but
Yeah,
just stuck with the Android. My current one I'm rocking now is a Pixel 6 Pro. Woohoo! Go
that's
Pixel!
awesome.
So
What's the appeal to you to the Android operating system compared to, you
I
know,
think the freedom. I mean,
hmm,
Apple has really good build quality. I love that. They have a really good ecosystem right now, but I think the Android, the draw for me is to kind of install any app you want, which I
hmm,
know Apple iOS has lots of apps in their
restrictions?
catalog,
But there are
but like
restrictions. So.
ringtones especially, well, that'll
Mhm.
be an example. Ringtones, you
That's
kind
good.
of get some without buying them, and just the customization, you can totally load a new operating system, all that stuff. So
Yeah, that's good. Well, for me, believe it or not, as much as I say I'm an Apple guy, I lean that way, but especially being in the field that I'm in, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. Honestly, I love all of them because I think they all do different things in different ways, and the right answer is really dependent on your preference, which is one of the reasons why I asked
mm, yeah,
what you liked about it. I did have a Galaxy S3, loved it. I loved it. However, it didn't have as good a battery life. But my main reason for switching back, because I've bounced back and forth
mm,
between Android and Apple through the years, was when I was on call once. I had an issue where I had missed it on a call, and it was caused a lot of issues for me at work. And I was missing calls. I think, I had people telling me, "Hey, you didn't pick up." But I'm like, "You didn't call me. It wasn't in the call log." I remember,
yeah,
and this was a long time ago. Like, I don't even know what version of Android we're talking. Way back when.
right.
And I remember
Back when
Samsung's
it was a
response.
marshmallow or a Kit Kat or something.
It,
Yeah,
Oreo. I don't know.
yeah, I
Actually,
don't know. Yeah,
I don't remember. It could be banana. I know they go by the alphabet, but
right, right.
anyway, um, I contacted Samsung support about it, and of course, the beauty and the crux of Android, especially at that time, was whoever your vendor was, whether it was LG or Samsung, they had their flavor of Android.
Yes,
And it's still kind of that way a little today, but it's gotten way better.
yeah,
But they told me, they're like, "Oh yeah, we know about that. It's a bug. We're going to get a patch for it." I'm like, "Well, when?" They couldn't tell me. So I ended up switching back to the iPhone only because I needed reliability on the phone calling because I had some weird nuances with that model.
yeah.
Now, that was a very long time ago. I will tell you, I'm a huge Android fan in the fact that it's really good for certain applications. Amazon Alexas run them.
Hmm.
Um, all kinds of personal assistants have them. The Nest thermostats, the Ring house systems. They're so
All the
good for
TVs coming out. Yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
TVs, yeah, the edge computing. I'm pretty sure Roku's might be Android based.
Hmm.
Some
Yeah,
amazing stuff they're doing with Android. So it's interesting. I respect the things that you can do with it and why you like it. For me, I liked having the closed system. because I like restriction on my mobile device. And that's honestly because I think what I do day in and day out, I don't know. It's just personal preference, but there is
Absolutely.
beauty in
Yeah.
both of them. There really is. And it's hands down. They both do things really well, and there's pros and there's cons to it. But I know a lot of people, I tease you a lot about like texting you. I get the green bubble and not the blue.
Yeah.
I know that's been a thing,
Yeah.
right? So what about,
I
do you,
finally
do you,
get to see iPhone reactions.
oh yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I've heard that they're starting to integrate
They're
that.
starting
So
to show up. First, it was say Keith laughed at your picture,
it would
but now
retell
I
you
get
the
a
whole
little
text.
smiley face on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really funny is it would tell you the whole text at one point. If it was really long. Keith laughed at Doug telling him about the time he went to the
and
mall. It, it
yeah,
was horrible.
it was
Uh,
great.
what about, you feel the same way about like, do you do any tablets or anything? Or do you only phones? Like, are you like mobile wise, are you Android for everything?
I am. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I have like an Android watch, Android tablet. I kind of like that they all mesh together. I think the argument is not iPhone versus Android or iOS versus Android. It's one or the other. So you have more business applications and stuff. I have just pictures and sharing. So it's whatever best suits your lifestyle.
I
But
totally
yeah,
agree.
you bring up tablet. I recently got a new tablet, watching movies and stuff. I work late nights and try to keep myself awake. So
Hmm.
I actually went
What'd you go with?
to Best Buy. Shocker. This is going to shock you. But I looked at iPads and I
No,
thought,
you didn't. You're a liar.
yep, yep. So I give it to Apple for having really good build quality. Like their
Yeah.
iPads, their iPhones, their Apple Watches. The build quality is great. I like the textures and the materials and the
Yeah.
metals they use.
They do a really good job on their build.
But it came down to having to learn a system that I've been away from for so long. So
Yeah.
the last iOS device I had was a 3, which, I mean, for some of us, that's like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
So having to learn a new entire ecosystem, that's what changed my mind. So I
Well, and
stayed with Android.
it's changed a lot since 3 too. iOS has gone through a lot of iterations, just like Android has. So that's understandable if you're used to
Hmm.
it. And the Google Suite's pretty strong as well. Everything that they have with
Oh,
Gmail
docs
and
and sheets
calendar
and all
docs and
that.
sheets.
I'm
Don't
involved in all of that. Yeah.
don't get me started on Chromebooks. Those are amazing. They really
Oh,
are.
yes.
They're good.
And I
So
looked at those too, but
yeah,
I didn't want a keyboard to get in the way of
yeah,
just shows and apps and stuff that I wanted
yeah.
it for.
Well, the beauty of you going with Android, and you can do it with iOS, but it's so much easier with Android, is you can put some emulators on there, load up some ROMs, and you can do some retro
Hmm.
gaming on it if you
Yeah.
ever want to. It's way easier on Android OS than it is for iOS to do. iOS, you can do it, but you have to download an app to like launch your ROMs and to launch
Hmm.
because you can't do any side loading on because of that closed system we talked about. It's a big, you can do it on I've seen videos where they did it with like an M1 chipset of Apple, which are great chips, by the way, hella fast. They're wonderful, but it's way easier to do on an Android. Are you going to do anything like that with your tablet?
Yeah. So I downloaded a Super Nintendo ROM. Super Nintendo has to be probably my favorite system.
Me
I
too.
have so many memories back in the day of Super Nintendo and playing all that. So I downloaded the ROM or the emulator for that. So I'm going to put some of my ROMs from my personal collection on the tablet.
Awesome. That's really cool. Super Nintendo was my favorite actually as well, just nostalgia wise. I love all of them to an extent, but the
Hmm.
Nintendo Super Nintendo
There's
was the
just
one.
something about Super
I
Nintendo.
know, man. I loved it.
NHL 98, and then
So
you
many good
got
stuff, dude.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and I can keep going on and on and
Dude,
on. Yeah.
dude, there's so many amazing Super
Yeah.
Nintendo games. So yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you. So you're still putting it through its paces. I assume it's new, the tablet,
Yep,
and you're
brand
so
new, and that's another thing, setting up phones. Like my wife thinks I'm weird, but I'll reset my phone just to set it up again and go through all
mhm,
the like downloading apps and rearranging them on the thing.
nothing wrong with that. Keep it
So,
clean.
yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Does it have any kind of storage expansion on it? I know you can do that on an iPad, for example. Can you do that on your tablet?
Yes, I believe it takes up to 1 terabyte. So it's got 128 on board and then I believe 6 gigs of RAM. So
Okay.
it's a pretty hefty, speedy little thing.
So it's
And
like
then I
a
can put a external in there.
micro SD chip, I assume.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
You can just
And I
like load
think
up all
that's
your
been the
ROMs on it.
argument from some iOS fans, correct me if
Yeah,
I'm wrong, is
it
no
has.
expandable storage.
It doesn't. Like you can take on, especially the most recent version of iOS, you can take a thumb drive, for example, if you had USB-C converter and you can plug into it and it now has a file system. You can store files, but mainly it's limited application. Like if you are a photographer and you're wanting to do photos and put them on the iPad and do like Photoshop on the iPad, things like that, you can do that. So they have gotten into that space, but it's not as open as, like what you can do on an Android when you plug it in and
Yep.
just browse the whole thing, sideload stuff. I mean, you have to jailbreak an iPhone in order to sideload things like that. So, but it's
So
definitely more secure to some extent, in my opinion,
continuing this
depending on what you're doing.
conversation, I heard that the European Union, correct me if I'm wrong, is making iPhone switch to USB-C.
Yeah, that happened last year. They are, and Apple's been resistant. There's a lot of reason why. Uh, you know, Accessories is a huge market, and lightning plugs was, there's such a
Yeah,
huge market for that.
they're
So a lot
making
of,
pretty good money because they're the only ones
yep,
that use lightning plugs. Yep.
yep. But a lot of hardcore people have been praising a lot of the manufacturers of Androids that went to USB-C a long time ago. 'Cause the advantage to USB-C is that faster throughput, especially if it's
Mm-hmm.
Thunderbolt based, and also you can charge. You can also do a display with it. You can send it to a monitor. It's multifaceted. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
do so much more with USB-C outside of just charging, and that's why a lot of people wanted it. So they are going to be
Yeah,
doing that for standards.
and that's a good thing for me. My new tablet has USB-C.
Mm-hmm.
My phone's USB-C. This laptop, so I don't have to say, "Oh my gosh, where's my charger at?" I'll just like, "Oh, here, I got one right
Yep,
here."
it's
So
a lot easier. They've definitely done a lot of benefits with that. So to round this topic out, let me ask you. So we talked about the Apple versus Android thing.
mhm.
What are some of the phones pre Android iOS that you had back in the day? I know we're both not young people,
Right.
so you might remember. I remember when there was no cell phones. So
I started, and I have to look it up. I started with the classic blue
the brick
Nokia brick phone. Now I
is
don't know the model
indestructible.
number on that,
Yeah,
but
we can look
oh
that
yeah,
up.
you drop that thing, you can throw it on the ground. You
Hmm.
set it like I might have on a car, and it slides off the hood and bounces on the asphalt.
Still
Well,
works.
still works. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Snake. It had Snake on there. I
Oh
thought I
yeah.
was awesome playing Snake.
Yeah, I remember that. Do you remember the Razor, the Motorola Razor flip
Yes.
phone?
So if you
Oh,
had a Razor in high school, you flip that thing open. You're so cool. Yeah.
the buttons were nice because they were flat. I don't know. There's just something
And
about
they
that
were
Razor phone.
back illuminated.
Yeah, they was a
Yeah,
had a nice display on it.
it was.
I
Yeah.
really liked the Razor flip phone. I think my first smartphone, it was only because of work gave it to me because I couldn't afford a smartphone. It was BlackBerry. And BlackBerry actually were pretty nice, but the biggest thing BlackBerry could do over everything else, it could do email. But it wasn't a very good browsing experience. And this is all pre-Apple jumping into the game, of course.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, I remember the Blackberries. They had the full size keyboard on them and everything. They were pretty awesome. They went way of
The
the dinosaur though.
internet on the old phones, I always worried when I hit that button because your
Data.
bill looked kind of
Hmm.
like the power in Christmas Vacation where it just starts spinning.
Yeah.
When I hit the internet on the old phone, I thought,
Stop.
"Oh my
Stop.
gosh, stop, 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 stop!"
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
So
I know. I did the same thing. Times have changed so much. It's absolutely nuts. I mean, these things are just like
yeah.
it's absolutely insane. Just like how
Hmm.
powerful these things are and what you can do with them now.
Yeah. The thing I miss, kind of to wrap this topic up, but phone design. So back in the day, high school, middle school, the phones were radical. They were crazy colors.
They were.
And now we kind of just have a rectangle with some cameras on it. I know there's
Yep.
different designs, but back in the day, they were crazy. So the best one I had is a Nokia 3650,
Hmm.
and we can try to put a picture of that up.
Yeah. I'm
But
gonna try to find that.
kind of had a rotary design on it, really big screen. It didn't do much, but it was just a cool design. And I remember taking that in school, and all
Oh,
the
you had one of those?
kids are like, "What the heck kind of phone is that?" So
You had one of those? That's
yeah, I
awesome.
did.
Wow. And there's a slide. They had there's a 3600 and a 3650. What's funny? A version of that phone slid up and there was a
Hmm.
keyboard on it. And I remember we had a family phone. We didn't give our kids phones right away, especially my oldest, my daughter. And somebody at some point somewhere went on a bike ride and they lost it. And I'll
Uh-oh.
never forget, like I found it. It was like 2 weeks later. It was after a thunderstorm, pouring down rain. And I found it when I was mowing and it was face down in the mud.
Still worked.
No joke. Picked it up.
Yep.
I rinsed it off, I'm going to have to put this thing in rice or something. Nope. Turned on, still had battery, and I could make a phone call. It was insane. They don't make phones like that anymore.
Yeah,
So
I wonder what their rating is. You know, phones now are rated like IP67,
yep,
IP68 for water,
yeah,
dust, and stuff. Those are like, I mean, just guessing, IP100 because they'd say out there for months and months you'd mow
yeah,
over them, and
yeah. And a lot
so
of it, the chips were different. They were different style of silicone and just the way that they were made. So they weren't quite as sensitive to, electromagnetic, shock
yeah,
and things like that. So
yeah,
there's a lot of factors that go into that. But yeah, man, they made some
they
crazy
were
good
good.
phones back then. So
That's the good old days, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
nostalgia, right?
yeah.
But they could not do half of what our current phones
No,
do in the
yeah,
way of
yeah.
power. So, all
I
right,
am
man.
glad to have my new smart technological phones, though.
Oh yeah, they're pretty sweet.
All right.
All
So
right,
enough about phones and Android and all that. What you got for me?
all right. So I had to go on a trip recently, and I had let me another disclaimer or context, I should say.
Hmm.
I am a massive Superman fan, like huge. Now,
Oh
a,
yes, I
a lot of
know that.
people say that's cliched. He's,
No, nothing wrong with that.
overpowered. Have all those arguments, but I think there's a lot more depth to him. But part of it is it's nostalgia for me because when I was a kid, I loved Superman. I had Superman pajamas. I would stuff, like toilet paper in my pajamas and stand on the air conditioner. When the wind would blow and
Yeah,
my cape would flow, and I'd stand on the
that's
back of
pretty
that,
cool.
just like looking over Metropolis and just role playing. I absolutely just was crazy about Superman. And when I collected comic books, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, I know I'm really dating myself. When I was a kid, that was the ones that, I collected because I love Superman. And I mean, I still remember standing in line to get the Death of Superman comic books, which I still have today, the whole set when they killed him off in the 90s and things. So
Yeah, yeah.
huge Superman fan. I mean, I have a tattoo. I've got it on my wedding ring. There's always a Superman symbol somewhere or in or around me in my office. I love Superman, crazy about him. There's a place called Metropolis, Illinois, and I had
Mm.
heard about it. And I happened to go on a road trip for a totally different reason and driving through Illinois. And I saw the water tower of the Metropolis, Illinois. And it was coming up, and I just didn't put two together. And so swung by there. And world's tallest Superman tower. What's really cool, you drive through the town, and they have all kinds of themed, like the pizza joint is super this, and
Hmm.
Steve's super gutter cleaners. Everything is super.
That's pretty cool.
And so stopped off, and I'll put some pictures up, and I was able to see the statue that they have in the town square, supposed to be the world's largest Superman statue. And then what's really cool is that they have a shop, and it was open for this being an impromptu trip. I went in there, and out front they have parked a car that, if you're familiar with Superman comics, the very first, back in the 1930s, Superman comic book cover is him lifting a car. It looks like he's throwing it, and it is that car essentially. So it's been
Oh, that's
restored.
really cool.
Yeah, and you go in there, it's just like wall to wall Superman memorabilia. Again, I'll put pictures up for everybody to see that. It was so cool. The shop person that was working had said that there's a festival in June, and they said usually it's so busy you can't even get into the store. So there's a Superman
Oh man.
festival in Metropolis, Illinois in June. I'm like, man, I need to go check that out.
Yeah, you need to go
So
back for that.
it was so cool. So that was a fun, like impromptu kind of a thing. Had a blast, just jumping in there and seeing it, and I felt like a kid again. I was like running around there looking at all the cool stuff, and so
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of a fun share thing that I didn't expect to have happen. So,
Yeah.
who's your favorite superhero? I got to ask. I don't think I've ever asked.
I Marvel, DC. You know, I had to make a
Hmm.
decision. Not that one's better than the other,
This
but
goes back to that Apple and Android, man.
I know I like comparing things.
I like having all of them.
So
I like all of them.
yeah,
so, so
my
who's
favorite
yours?
superhero would be Batman. So I really
Love
like
Batman.
Marvel, but I have to go the other way. Yeah,
Yep, I
just
love me some Batman.
yeah.
Not, I think
Uh,
my who's your favorite Marvel?
that's a good question. I like all of them really. I mean, Iron Man, Thor, all that.
All the
I
Avengers.
really don't have a favorite. Guardians of the Galaxy. No, I have not read
They were so
any
good.
comic books or anything, but the movies, I love those. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of movies coming out, Volume 3,
Yep.
closing that whole 3 series movies by James
Mm.
Gunn will be hitting in May.
I
So,
am excited. Yep.
yep.
I've watched the first two and they were great. I love the music. I've got
Mhm. Oh, the
the
soundtracks are
classic
great.
hits on Spotify,
Yep, yep.
listening to those. So
Where you can hear our podcast as well.
absolutely. Kind of a little push
Little plug
to check
like
us out
that.
on Spotify.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and that does bring us to the closure of our show. If you're liking this, everyone, we're posting the video is available on our YouTube channel. Just search the Wired Nerdy Podcast. It's also now both in video and audio out on Spotify. And then let's see. Keep me honest here, Doug. We're on Pandora.
Yep.
What else am I missing here?
We got that
Apple.
Google Podcast for the Androids.
Yep, that's coming. But it takes a little time to get posted. But yes,
yeah.
Google Podcast be on there. We're on Apple. I know I'm missing one. I always put it in the notes. Oh, iHeart Radio.
Yep.
That's another one. So we're on so many platforms. There's no reason why you shouldn't be listening to us. So I'm glad you brought that up. Dude, another show in the can, man. How do you feel about it?
I feel a lot better. I mean, the first show, I was kind of nervous. This is new for me, but talking to you as a friend helps. Second show, I think I've had a lot more to add. And third show, fourth show, fifth show, I think we're just going to get better and better.
You're going to be an old pro by the time this is over with.
There we go.
Yeah, we've got some exciting stuff coming up down the way, including Doug has lined up some pretty cool special guests where we're going to be able to interview and learn more about some
kind of a celebrity. He's got pay-per-view and all kinds of stuff. I don't want to give it away, but
don't give it away. We're building the brand, but there's some really, really good stuff coming down the way here. So a lot of great topics. So stay with us. We're going to try to do this weekly. That's our goal. If you look out on there, it might say bi-weekly because that was our original goal, but we're going to try weekly because we're having fun with this. And we want to thank you for joining us for this episode number 2, and we will see you next week. Doug, closing words.
Just keep being nerdy, keep being you, and we'll try to bring you the news and bring you the things we love and keep this exciting.
That's perfect. Look at that, guys. He did it. He's a natural.
I'm doing better all the time.
I know. Look at
that.
I'll
see you guys next week.
All right. Sounds good, everybody. You have a great week.